If Governor Bush is a reformer, I'm an astronaut. And
Reformer or astronaut, Senator McCain's big problem now is momentum. After surging in New Hampshire, he clearly had it. But Saturday's convincing South Carolina victory put George W. Bush back on the magazine covers.
I believe that if John McCain had been able to win South Carolina by any margin, that it would have given him enormous momentum coming in here in Michigan. I think he might have been able to sweep right through. But I think it blunted his momentum. There's very little chance to turn around.
In that case, the advantage for Governor Bush may be this man, Michigan Governor John Engler. Signed on early with Bush, controls a huge cadre of political appointees, and is a powerful force among the state's Republicans.
George W. Bush has a massive organization in Michigan for a presidential primary, organized by Governor John Engler. He's got county chairman, district chairman, phone banks, a lot of money. Not only in media, but in get out the vote, in mailings. John McCain basically has a corporal's guard up here.
The Honorable George Bush.
But there are important differences between South Carolina and Michigan. The religious right, so critical to Governor Bush's victory on Saturday, is not nearly as powerful in Michigan. And Mr. Bush's appearance at the fundamentalist Bob Jones University, with its history of intolerance towards minorities and Catholics, has exposed fault lines in the Republican Party. New York Congressman Peter King, a Catholic who had endorsed Mr. Bush, tonight explained why he switched his allegiance to John McCain just in time for the Michigan primary.
And I think he really took the low road by going to Bob Jones University and by going to a school which is clearly anti-Catholic and anti-black.
The McCain campaign is counting on the controversy to attract independents and Democrats who are eligible to vote in tomorrow's primary. But that may not be enough if South Carolina is any guide.
It's very difficult to win a Republican primary if you lose Republican voters by 43%. You have to get a reasonable share of Republicans and put them together with independents and Democrats. When you lose Republicans by 43 percentage points, you can't possibly bring in enough independents and Democrats to overcome that deficit.
The other important primary tomorrow is in Arizona. Senator McCain, of course, is that state's favorite son, and he is expected to win. The question is, by how much? And the answer is complicated.
Traditionally, presidential candidates have won the primaries in their home states by an average of 50 points since 1988. I don't know that John McCain will be able to match that here in Arizona.
Kevin Ann Willey, editorial page editor of the Arizona Republic, says McCain's prospects are clouded because Governor Jane Hull and other top state Republicans have endorsed Governor Bush.
I think there is perhaps a greater concern about whether, in fact, John McCain is the person who can take the reform mantle and really translate it into reality. To do that, you have to be able to bring people together around a common purpose and get them to cooperate and collaborate. And John McCain's record of being able to do that is very mixed.
After Arizona and Michigan, the Republican calendar closes in fast. In the next 2 weeks, 18 states hold primaries and caucuses, a dozen on March 7th alone. But 3 of the biggest, New York, California, and Ohio, allocate delegates based only on the preferences of registered Republicans. And given the trouble John McCain had with his own party's voters in South Carolina, that does not bode well for his campaign. This is Chris Bury for Nightline in Washington.
And we'll continue with our political wise men, George Stephanopoulos and David Gergen, when we come back.
I need a car?
There's a whole new way to shop for a used car.
Oh, a convertible. A red one. With under 15,000 miles.
Introducing Autotrader.com. With 1.5 million used cars updated daily, it's the biggest, best used car site on the planet.
You couldn't help me with a loan, could you? Can we help you?
Autotrader.com. Your car is waiting.
He's got Zagatron? I'll exchange it.
Introducing e-merchandise return from the United States Postal Service. It's so simple, your customers can print a prepaid return label right from your website. Now the stuff they buy online practically returns itself. Easier exchanges for them means more business for you. What's your E-priority?
Why? It is a small word, but it is a quick, sharp, and abrupt word. Why? It is the chosen word of the nonconformist, the defiant, and the visionary. It is a confrontational word.
Why?
It challenges what's thought to be impossible. If you are not afraid to ask why, you could change whatever it is you want.
Coming up, P.I. is at the movies.
The only people who go to chick movies are chicks and guys who want to sleep with the chicks who go to the movies.
Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher.
KVUE Television serves Eastern Washington from studios in Kennewick, Washington. We are an equal opportunity employer and have established an affirmative action program, which we hope will help us find qualified women and minorities for vacant staff positions. KVUE Television presently has an opening for a full-time general assignment reporter. If you are interested in this position, or if you know someone who might be interested, contact KVUE TV, 601 North Edison, Kennewick, Washington, 99336. Applications will only be accepted until position is filled. No phone calls, please.
Right now, when you choose from the lowest priced minivan to the ultimate, you can get $1,500 cash allowance or 0.9 financing for 60 months, which means you can save over $4,700 in finance savings on a new Chrysler Town & Country and the popular Voyager. Now get $1,500 cash allowance or 0.9 financing for 60 months on all new minivans.
See your local Northwest Chrysler and Plymouth dealer.
And we're joined again by David Gergen and George Stephanopoulos. David, as we watch McCain travel across Michigan today, he seemed to have a problem. How to go after Bush without breaking his pledge to stay positive. Can he pull that off?
Very, very difficult, Chris. There's something that happened in South Carolina, and that was that John McCain lost the aura of a winner. And now he has to come back with a message, and the message is not there. He's competing in a Republican primary, asking for the help of independents and not Republicans, so it's very difficult to bring the Republicans back. And more he's talking about his honor. He's making this campaign about his honor. That's very understandable. He is going to leave this campaign with his honor intact, indeed enhanced. But right now, he's facing a very difficult fight, an uphill fight against George Bush in Michigan because he does not have a message.
And Governor Bush, you saw today, was pretty much the happy warrior, almost eager to start the general election and pretty much ignoring John McCain. David's exactly right. In South Carolina, John McCain's campaign became way too much about John McCain and not about his cause. His only real hope tomorrow, and it is still pretty close, is Democrats. Actually, there is this movement in Michigan to get some Democrats to go out and vote against Governor Engler. They were 10% of the vote in the 1996 primary. If they double, as they did in South Carolina, that could give John McCain a chance, but that's a very, very slim read to hope for.
I was going to say, David, I mean, can a Republican win the Republican nomination based on independents and Democrats?
No. You cannot win a Republican nomination by if you go into a primary and come out 30 points behind among Republicans or 43 points behind as he was in South Carolina. This is, after all, a Republican primary, and John McCain increasingly is running a Ross Perot-type campaign. It's not going to work within the Republican Party. Unfortunately for him, the Bush campaign knocked him off message and off stride in South Carolina. It may be that McCain will recover here. We'll see. This thing is still up for grabs. But right now, you have to say, coming back to Chris Bury's piece, that John Engler's organization, the governor of Michigan, has an extraordinarily powerful, well-organized, and loyal operation that's working on behalf of George W. Bush.
George, let me just ask you, one thing that we are seeing in Michigan is that George Bush is paying at least some price for having gone so conservative in South Carolina and having appealed to the religious right. How much extra baggage does that give him?
Well, not too much in Michigan, because after all, I have a small quibble with Chris Bury's piece. Even though the religious right is far less important in the Republican primary in Michigan than it is in South Carolina, it's still 20% of the vote. Where this is really going to cost him is in the general election. George Bush entered this campaign last summer wanting to be a unifier, wanting to be a new Republican who was good and broaden the base of the Republican Party. Instead, he's beaten John McCain by rallying the right of the Republican Party, and that's going to provide a big target for Democrats in the fall. You saw Al Gore tonight in the debate. attacking the visit to Bob Jones University, attacking George W. Bush's huge tax cut, and that's just a preview of what you're going to see the rest of the fall.
Let's make it difficult for both of you. David, we've got less than 2 minutes left. Let me give you John McCain. If you're advising him, what does he do?
He tries to find a telephone booth somewhere and try to turn into Superman. It's going to be very, very difficult here, Chris. I think that what he wants to do is come within 5 to 10 points, or 5 points, say, of George W. Bush in Michigan. If he can do that, go on to Washington State, see if he can pull off an upset somewhere. He has to win in a way that is convincing to the public and particularly to the press between now and March 7th to have any shot in March 7th.
And George, same question for you about Bill Bradley. What does he do now?
Very tough road to hoe. He's got even a harder job than John McCain because Al Gore is so far ahead already in delegates. But he's got to do what he started tonight, build the case against Al Gore that he's too conservative, but even more than that, he's got to be willing to be much more forthright and say that Al Gore doesn't have the character to be president. If indeed that's the argument he's been making it is, he's got to do it much harder.
And David, which do you think has been a more damaging primary fight at this point? Who's had more wounds inflicted on him? Al Gore or George Bush?
Well, you have to say the fact that Al Gore has closed much of the gap with George Bush, that Governor Bush so far has paid more of a price. Whether let's say he wins tomorrow in Michigan, if he does, and goes on to win the nomination, if he gets a bounce out of that, maybe he'll reopen that lead. But right now, the George W. Bush lead, which was well up in the high teens, is within single digits. So, and what I think we saw tonight in that Democratic debate was that Governor Bush, if he were to win the nomination, is going to face a very tough set of debates with whoever the Democratic nominee is, because Al Gore tonight was very tough.
David Gergen, George Stephanopoulos, we're going to have to leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you both very much for joining us tonight. And I'll be back in a moment.
Buzz Aldrin and I don't take the same approach to investing. I like trading at home. Buzz trades from far away. Gotcha. We do, however, share the same new way to trade online.
Introducing Power Street by Fidelity, with the tools you need to trade your way, whether online, two-way pager, or the new Palm 7 handheld computer.
And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to use it.
Speak for yourself, Bob.
Power Street at Fidelity.com. Online trading gets personal.
Chrysler Concorde, four-wheel independent suspension, and a powerful V6.
I didn't know Davis could move like that. I told him to think of himself as something powerful and agile. Wonder what he was thinking.
Now get $1,000 cash allowance on the Chrysler Concorde.
His commitment to country is unquestioned, and his commitment to reducing wasteful spending is just as strong. With John McCain, there will be no special deals for special interests.
I will refuse to sign any pork barrel bill that crosses my desk, and if Congress overrides my veto and tries to force me to waste your money, I'll make sure you know who they are, every single one of them.
A man we can believe and believe in. John McCain, character, courage, for president.
So you walked into that other dealership to get the car of your dreams, and the salesperson took one look at your credit report and put on that bad credit face. Well, maybe it's time to come see us. We can get you financed, even if you don't have perfect credit. So come on, smile. We can help.
All the difference in the world. Budget car and truck sales just off Highway 395 in Pasco.
When cold winds begin to blow and storm clouds start to grow, don't let
With its legendary four-wheel drive capability,
drive you to despair. Just make an angel.
Jeep Grand Cherokee can go where no ordinary 4x4 can.
Raindrops find
Check one out at your Jeep dealer.
Tomorrow, Ted Koppel will have full coverage of the Michigan and Arizona Republican primaries. And that's our report for tonight. I'm Chris Wallace in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
Nightline is always on with ABCNews.com, part of the Go Network. You can order a transcript or video cassette of this or any other Nightline broadcast by dialing 1-800-CALL-ABC or visiting abcnewsstore.com on the World Wide Web.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.